Former President Trump is back in the nation's capital for the first time since leaving office.
His address at the America First Agenda Summit is expected to be a major policy speech. Mr. Trump's speech comes just hours after his former running mate touted his own agenda for the Republican Party. Mr. Pence's speech at the Young America's Foundation focused on his freedom agenda and moving the GOP forward.
I came today not to look backwards, but to look forward. The truth of the matter is, now more than ever, conservatives need to be focused on the challenges Americans are facing today and offer a bold and positive agenda of solutions for the future.
CBS News political correspondent Caitlin Huey-Burns joins us now with more from Washington. Caitlin, always great to see you. So what stood out to you the most from Mr. Pence's speech?
Hey, Tanya. Well, this idea of looking towards the future and not towards the past, you can guess who he's talking about there. That's his former boss, former President Trump, who is also in Washington today. We kind of have this situation where it's a split screen situation where you have both Trump and Pence in Washington giving these kind of dueling speeches. We saw that a little bit over the weekend when they were both in Arizona. And what's significant about Pence is that he is laying the groundwork, essentially, for his own presidential run, perhaps, and really not paying too close attention to what Trump is doing. He's giving kind of these subtle nods or nudges or kind of pokes a little bit by kind of digging at Trump a little bit by saying that he's focused on the last election while Republicans need to be focused on the future and policy items that they need to run on. But it's interesting because Pence is also talking and touting the agenda items of the Trump-Pence administration. He and other Republicans are promoting a lot of those agenda items that Republicans are likely going to try to run on in these midterms. So it'll be interesting to see how Pence kind of navigates this, but significant that he's not waiting for a decision from Trump. He's kind of going ahead. He's giving these kinds of speeches. He's endorsing candidates that the president isn't endorsing or that are running against the president's choices. So kind of an interesting dynamic between a president and his former vice president.
Yeah, Caitlin, on that front, it seems like a very clear line is being drawn. How have members of the Republican Party been reacting to this separation between the former president and vice president?
Yeah, well, it's interesting because they are kind of setting up two different camps. Are you in the Trump wing or are you in the Pence wing or some kind of other lane that might be occupied by someone like a Larry Hogan or others who are just kind of, turning their noses at Trump? But here, that line is kind of being drawn. Do you want to focus on the past election and past grievances, or do you want to focus on Republican policies and contrasting with the current administration and Democrats? And that's what what Pence was essentially saying in his speech today. But at the same time, you have a Republican Party base that is still very connected to the former president. He got a big crowd in Arizona. He's been endorsing candidates up and down the ballot and endorsing candidates who believe his false claims or say they believe his false claims about the election. So this is really kind of a crossroads for the party about what they want to focus on.
Caitlin, how much is the January 6th House investigation impacting both Mr. Trump and Mr. Pence's position within the GOP? There have been some pundits who've said, some of the testimony of Pence in the basement refusing to leave the Capitol, even as his life was in danger, made him seem more presidential. What have you been hearing about the way the testimony has been framing the two?
Yeah, when you talk to Republican strategists, they say that, look, Republican primary voters they argue that they're not paying attention to these hearings. But they also say, look at how other potential candidates are reacting. Does the information that we're learning from the January 6th committee, a lot of damning information about the former president and what he didn't do during the attacks, more information is coming out day by day. Does that encourage some of these other Republican candidates who are thinking about running in 2024 to step into the ring and say, you know what, according to one person we talked to, we can kind of embrace Trump's policies without the baggage. And so that's what's really interesting to watch here. While Republicans say that, sure, voters may not be paying attention to these committee hearings, but the other candidates are possibly watching this and kind of internalizing, do they want the nominee to be, attached to that? And that's something to really kind of pay attention to and listen for in some of these speeches from a Pence or from a Nikki Haley or a Mike Pompeo. Does that give them some room to say, hey, I can kind of operate here. I don't need to wait for the former president to decide. One person to watch, though, is Ron DeSantis. He's the governor of Florida, and unlike all those other candidates, he actually has to run for re-election this year and needs the Trump base.
Yeah, definitely want to continue watching him. Caitlin, thank you.